Today we're talking about the wonderful, happening or not happening chance of probability. So, here's our formula for probability. The number of ways an event can occur over the number of total possible outcomes. Every single possible outcome you can have comes down to a probability line. For example, we could use this deck of cards. I'm going to have someone shuffle this deck of cards. Oh, it's a 6. Now, I have a 2 in 50 chance of pulling an additional 6.
That is a 6.
Now, there's only one more card in the deck that's a 6, and there are 49 other cards. But
No way. I swear.
Oh my god.
let's try this by using a couple of examples. We'll start with some dice, or just one die. Now, as you know, your regular die has 6 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're using our 6-sided die. So, if a piece of die, if one die has 6 sides, that means when we roll it, there are 6 possible outcomes. 6 outcomes we could get. Now, I want to have an event. Our event is going to be how likely is it going to be that when we roll this dice once, an even number comes up? Well, let's take a look. We know there are 6 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, raise your hand and tell me what possibilities I have for an even number. There are 3 possible ways for us to get an even number. 2, 4, and 6. So the way we look at this, when we roll this die, 3 possible outcomes over 6 total possible outcomes. 3 ways even numbers could occur over our 6 total outcomes. And when we simplify 3 over 6, we're going to end up with 1 over 2 or 1/2. So, if I were to ask, what's the probability or how likely would it be that you would roll an even number when you roll a dice one time, or die one time? It would be 50%. Or, as we learned it, the probability would be as likely as not to occur. And there is a 100% chance you're going to be asked to write full sentences in your homework, so make sure you write down this phrase because you're going to need it in your homework. There is, if it's 1/2, the chance of getting an even number if you roll a die one time is as likely as not to occur. It is a 50%, 1/2 chance probability. Now we're going to go back to my coin. This time I want to know, if I flip my coin 3 times in a row, what's the probability I'm going to get heads all 3 times? Every single time I flip it, I get heads. Well, first I have to look at all of the possible outcomes I could have while flipping a coin 3 times. So, my class put together the different outcomes you can get when I flip this coin 3 times. And as it turns out, there are 8 possible different outcomes I could get when I flip this coin different times. Out of all of these combinations, there are 8 total outcomes. Now, remember in my example, I was only looking for the outcome of getting head, 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 which is right here. It can only happen one time. So, my probability of this happening in the formula, putting it in, 1 chance out of 8 would look like this. 1 over 8. Let's apply this to our probability line to see where it falls and if we can figure out the likelihood of this event. Remember, our line goes from 0 to 1 with 1/2 in the middle. Now, 1/8 on our number line would fall much closer to the 0 than anything else. Not at the 0, but much for the 1/2. So it would fall in this section, making it pretty unlikely that it's going to happen. Unless you're my Uncle Earl, who had a magic coin which showed up heads every single time he flipped it. Now, unfortunately, I haven't heard from him for a while. He's gotten into a bit of trouble with his magic coin and got on the wrong side of a couple leprechauns, but it's still pretty cool. Now.